On behalf of Bishop Walnut and the entire Smithfield 17 Forum, thank you for your participation today. I hope it will be a comfort to you. A family prayer was offered immediately prior to the service by Judy's son, Brother Jeremy Northwood. Judy, we want you to know for all a single comfort. We'd like to thank Brother Harrison Slack, who will be accompanying our congregation today on the organ, as well as Sister Diane Harrison, who will be our chorister. We will begin the service by singing hymn number 86, and we're going to sing the first and fourth verses of How Great Thou Art. Following, and we'll have a new location offered by Brother Greg Ash.
Kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the opportunity that we can be here today and celebrate the life of Jack Ford. My Father, please be with us through this time, comfort us and give us the guidance that we need at this point in our lives. Please help us that we can adequately reflect on Jack's life and pay a tribute that he would be proud of. Please bless us as we travel throughout the day, that we will be able to do so in safety, and that we can share stories of love and share our love with each other as we're all gathered together. We ask these things humbly in the sacred name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
For the benefit of those who may be watching remotely, I'm going to share some of the information that you have in your program. In remembrance of Jack Douglas Ford, born February 21st, 1949, Logan, Utah, died January 14, 2026, in Grayville, Wyoming. Pallbearers Dustin Ford, Joshua Ford, Jeremy Northrup, Drew Ford, Joel Ford, and Ethan Gus Pretorius. Honorary pallbearers, Jonathan Ford, Colton Northrup, Joseph Ford, Jeremy Northrup Jr., Titus Northrup, Jared Northrup, Carrie Barney Northrup, Matthew Northrup, John Northrup, James Northrup. Its funeral service held on Saturday, January 31st, 2026 at 11 a.m. in the Smithfield 17th Ward Chapel. David Karen conducting. We'll now proceed with the service by hearing a eulogy offered by Lacey Ford, daughter. And following her eulogy, we'll hear remarks from Rex Steele, a close friend, Brother Ford, at which point I will come and announce the remainder of the program.
Jack Douglas Ford, 76, was born on February 21st, 1949, in Logan, Utah, to George Everett Ford and Bee Alice Coons Ford. He passed away January 14th, 2026, in Grable, Wyoming. George and Alice's family eventually numbered 9 children, however, only 4 grew to adulthood: May, Bonnie, Liz, and Jack. Jack grew up in Smithfield, Utah, raised in the LDS church, and learning the value of work early in life. He worked alongside his father and uncles at Ford and Gregory Construction. When just 8 years old, he learned to run a sheepfoot roller as they constructed Winder Dam in Idaho. As a teenager and adult, he worked in the construction company with his dad on many projects and learned the internal working of the business, as well as the mechanics, maintenance, and repair of the equipment and project management. At an early age, he knew how to overhaul equipment and automobile engines. When he was in the 9th grade, he was told he could have his first car if he would overhaul the engine, and so he did. Jack attended Smithfield schools, graduating from Skyview High School in 1967, then later attended Utah State University. He and his friend Tom Clark were elected to represent Skyview at the Plymouth Travel Shooting Contest in Detroit. They returned home with trophies and awards. They both received scholarships to Lincoln Technical Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, where they ventured to add to their automotive education. They soon returned to Cache Valley. I think they did that after there was a car theft. They couldn't hack the city. Jack was a car enthusiast and an excellent mechanic, especially enjoying his 1966 and 68 Chevelles. Street racing and racing on the drag strip in Pocatello were some of his favorite endeavors, and his parents went to Pocatello to watch him race. Ultimately, Jack spent 20 years as a truck driver, transporting milk, livestock, and over-the-road loads. He drove for Cache Valley Dairy, Cedar Valley Transport, Miller Brothers, and several other trucking companies. Eventually, he had his own Peterbilt, leased to Schreiber Foods, and he drove from Utah to California to New Jersey, and from Canada to Tennessee to Florida. In due time, he returned to construction, heavy equipment operation, and pressure operation, where his skill, precision, and deep mechanical intuition were widely known. Jack married his high school sweetheart, Angela King, in the LDS Logan Temple, where they were blessed with 2 children, Raquel and Jack. He and Angela later divorced. Later, he married Linda Gerstner. I don't want to slaughter that other name, I'm sorry. They had 2 sons, Joshua and Jonathan, who joined Linda's children, Geraldine, Jill, Kelly, and Christy. He and Linda were later divorced. Jack met his eternal love, Judy Dunn, and together they shared adventure and a large and deeply loved family. Jack and Judy share 10 children, 25 grandchildren, and 21 great-grandchildren, with 2 more on the way. Jack is survived by his wife, Judy, their 10 children, their 25 grandchildren, and the 21 great-grandchildren. And I will not name 56 people. Among his grandchildren, he held a particularly meaningful and fatherly role in the life of Gus, who cherished him deeply. When Gus was born in the same year that Dad retired, Dad gained a few more job titles that aren't listed here. He became Gus's full-time daycare provider when I had to go back to work. He became his chauffeur, driving him around to taekwondo or school or field trips. And when Gus was, doing online school, Dad also taught him, and he did double time because Dad taught him the curriculum he needed to learn to pass, to get a passing grade, and then he taught him the truth. If you know, you know. Jack was preceded in death by his parents, George and Alice Ford, and 8 siblings and their spouses. And he was known for his sharp and curious mind. He had a deep interest in law, politics, and the Constitution, carrying a firm, thoughtful view of the world. Many would call him a conspiracy theorist, though his conclusions were the result of thorough research, and time has proven more than once he was right. He loved technology and was endlessly fascinated by new tools, gadgets, and digital developments. He delighted in computers, smartphones, GPS, drones, and the ever-evolving world of information. He was a romantic and an avid country music fan, and his truck driver stories are legendary. Jack was also a true food lover. He enjoyed grilling, experimenting in the kitchen, and savoring good meals, especially shrimp, crab, lobster, salmon, and tender steak and avocado. He famously ate tomatoes like most people eat apples. He was a jack of all trades in the truest sense, a skilled equipment operator, a talented mechanic, a thinker, a learner, and a builder. His intelligence was both practical and intricate. His mind worked like a finely tuned machine. His presence, guidance, humor, stubbornness, curiosity, and warmth were deeply missed. I want to thank my mom for writing a beautiful tribute to him and for taking care of him all the way through and being an amazing caretaker. He often called you his angel for your continued care. And I just hope that you know it means so much to all of us, how well you took care of him to the very end. And I want to say thank you to Gus for taking him early and just jumping in and taking that role too, and being with him up to the very end. And I want to thank Nick for holding it down at home so that we could all join together and stay with him at the end of his life, where he was able to pass at home, surrounded by family. And I thank everyone here who came to support us and everyone who has offered their support in various ways and helped us get through all of this. Thank you guys.
Brothers and sisters, I'm grateful to be here today. It's been a while since I've seen Jack, and it was good to see him, but might have been better in a different way. But I first met Jack, I think it's probably been maybe 30 years. I can't even remember. I don't have the best memory, but it's been a while since I met him. I think I met him through a neighbor, Roger Crummett, that he was doing some siding for Roger, and that's where I met him. And Jack smiles all the time, right? And I smile all the time. In fact, I smile when you're not supposed to, right? I just smile, and Jack was that way. He always had a smile, and so we got along great that way. And because he did siding and I did roofing, but I hadn't done much roofing for a while, and we contracted the job. I had Jack get with me and say, "Oh, we got this job, we got to do." And since Jack is a jack of all trades, he knew a lot about building. And I didn't know much about building, but I knew a lot about roofing. And so we contracted and did a roof for cattle in Preston. And I think the roof's still there, and I think the porch is still there on the back side of it. And it's a good place to get something to eat, you know, and I can go there. I went there the other day just to admire the roof and the back porch. There is something else about Jack. He had a lot of faith in things that he did. And I know Judy might remember this, that he had lost a part on his farm over there, his little farm over in Benina. He was baling and he lost a part to his baler. And they'd asked if I had one of those metal detectors, and we got a I gave him a metal detector and he used it. And I don't know if Judy, but somebody drove him up and down on 10 acres trying to find a part to a tractor. Now that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, how are you gonna find a part in a 10-acre field? But he was bound determined that he was gonna find it because he didn't want to go buy another part. And I don't know if he ever found the part, actually. I don't know, but I know that he got the field baled and that was done. But that kind of rubbed off on me because that's happened in my life a lot. And I said, you know, you gotta be persistent. It wasn't very long ago that I lost my phone out moving sprinkler pipes, and I'd gotten some neighbors to help me, but it was dark and it's 10 acres and there were several lines, and my phone is my life. You know, I mean, I had all my business stuff on it, all my friends' numbers on it, and I was just sick. I didn't know what to do. And my son was when he said, "Oh, you lost your phone. Okay, well, see you later." And I had a neighbor though that got a little percent, so let's see what we can do. And he got a light, and I thought, well, let's use some of that high tech stuff. You know, Jack was good at the high tech. Maybe ping the phone or whatever. That didn't work because we couldn't even see where the phone was. It showed that maybe it was in Preston or maybe it was here, but it did ping once, and it was maybe out in the field north of the pond. So we being persistent, and it was because of what I had learned earlier. It's something many times, but this is one of the times. And so you go out, it's dark. How are you going to find a phone? You know, I mean, it's just not going to happen, but it did happen. We walked right out, and there, the phone was propped up on a sprinkler head on one of the lines. Like somebody put it there for us to go. You know, it was our persistence and having faith that this could happen, and we were able to get it. And so I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I got to be like Jack. He had faith." And you also have to have works. You have to go out and do and move. Many of you probably have had stories like this or had things happen like this. Another time with Jack, we had cows up Mink Creek, and I was always calling on Jack to come help me because he would drop everything and come and help you. He would do that. And so I had some need, and he came with me, and we went out to look for these cows. And we couldn't find them. And of course, they're over one of the hills. They were a long ways away from where they were supposed to be, and a neighbor wasn't very happy about it. And you know, I'm usually kind of a calm person, and maybe Jack is calm. I don't know, but on this occasion, I went down to talk to the farmer, and he was on a tractor, and he lit into me terribly. You know, I can't even talk about the words that he used on me technically. I mean, it was bad, and I just recoiled and said, "Well, call me when you see my cows again." And I started walking out. And well, Jack heard all this, and he was up in the car, and Jack came out. Now, Jack's not very tall. But the next thing you know, if you've ever seen a lion in the wild on a prairie, that's what happened. And Jack put this person back in his place really fast. And he knew a few swear words. And the person didn't know what to do. And Jack later told me, said, "Rex, I knew you couldn't do this. So you needed my help." And I did need his help. And that person totally changed. I mean, he finally realized that he was not being a good neighbor. He wasn't loving his neighbor. You know, he wouldn't even tell me where the cows were. And then he came and helped us get the cows, and not only that, they got out again, and he helped me a second time. And I since learned, you know, sometimes you do have to be strong and assertive in what you're doing in your life when something happens. But you know, you gotta be a little bit careful, right? And so I appreciated that, Jack, and I said, "Okay, that's really good." And I don't swear, you know, went up a ladder on a roof and hit my head really hard, and the person on the roof started swearing. I said, "Why are you swearing?" He said, "Well, I knew you wouldn't." So I had to swear for you. And I guess that's what Jack was kind of thinking here about that. Jack, I don't know what he was thinking, but why did he die on my birthday? He had to be thinking, and since and I gotta tell a story about that, because he died on my birthday. That is my birthday, 14th. And of course, I didn't know that, but the 15th, I have cows. You know, in fact, I got a bunch of cows back, 90 some cows, and I don't know what to do with them. I can handle 12 or 15, but 90, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I needed help. And on the 15th, it just shows you what can happen, because I know Jack likes technology, and he must be just embracing it now like no other. Because and maybe you guys will have some of these experiences because of Jack on the other side, you know. But all of a sudden, in the morning, early morning, when I'm still got my eyes closed, a portal opens up, you know, like a lens on a camera. And I see cows, and they're not where they're supposed to be. And I see hills, and I see sagebrush, and I see canyons and stuff. And I said, "What is this? Oh, I know what it is. Somebody has got a pasture for me to put my cows in." And I'm thinking about this and trying to decide. And I said, "Well, it looks a little familiar, but why am I seeing this?" And so then I get up and I go up to the cows. When I got up to the cows to feed them, I said, "You know what? Something's not right here. It doesn't look like 90 heads of cow. There's only 70. And so the guy I was with, I said, "We need to go see what's going on." So we went looking. And I saw something way off to the east. And I went to the east. And there were some cows over there. There was like 18 of them. And they were in the same terrain that I was looking at. Now, so Jack's already figured out, in my opinion, he's already figured out technology there where he knows how to beam things into your minds. He did into mine. I mean, it must have been Jack, because we had our cow problem, you know, and he was always helping me with cows. And I figured, you know what, that must have been Jack's little favor to me to let me know. And, you know, and I appreciated that. You know, to tell you another little story about, since Jack loved food, at least I've heard that he really was a lover of food. And, you know, I can't think of any food that I don't like. I mean, I even like oysters and buttermilk. And I don't know, Jack probably didn't get into buttermilk, but when my father passed away, he was bedridden and couldn't get up. But then all of a sudden he was up in the middle of the night, and he's traipsing through the house. And this is in my brother's house, and he's got MS. He doesn't get around very well, but he got up and was wondering, "What the heck is that noise?" And he goes in, and it's my dad at the refrigerator. And he said, "I've got to have one last bite of cantaloupe before." Now, it's changed my attitude about food, because he died right after that. He had his cantaloupe, but he died before he went back to bed, because he didn't want to die in bed. He wanted to be moving. But it made me realize that food's really pretty important, recipes and things like that. So we got to glean on food. And I guess Jack liked food and was good at that. And so I appreciate that. I really did appreciate knowing Jack. And I've got a little problem now where, you know, I've been working, my house has been a mess in terms of construction. And I've been kind of trying to get Jack to come, but, you know, Jack wasn't able to come. But, you know, it's funny that now that Jack has passed away, I'm actually starting to get things done, and I'm starting to figure things out in my house. Is that just coincidental? You know, I don't think so, because he does know that. And I think sometimes we don't realize that people that have passed on, particularly loved ones, they are not too far from us. And the veil can become thin, and they can know what we're feeling and what we're seeing and what's going on in our lives. And we can receive strength from it. I'm so grateful that I've been able to know Jack. And I'm grateful for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I'm grateful for the family that I have and the children that I have. They're always really good to me, and I'm sure Jack has had his friendliness with his children. And I know Judy smiled a little bit, but I had a son that bought me a truck the other day. Can you imagine giving me a truck? So I tell every farmer I go see, I tell the sons, I said, you know what, you need to step up. Look at this brand new truck. It's just a Duramax. It's not worth very much, right? It's brand new, but and it's got cameras in the back and on the side and on the front. And, it's high tech. But it is wonderful that we can go through life and we can interact with people and have things happen. And I'm grateful for the things that has happened with me, between me and Jack. And I know that he'll be a help to me to get this house done, because I've had friends come here. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know, they can't see. Now all of a sudden, I've actually got some things done the last few days. I don't think that's coincidental. I already said all that. I wonder if he's got any relatives that are picked up his act for framing, maybe they can come my way and help me. I love Jack. He was a good friend. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Place of Joel's musical number. We're going to have the congregation sing hymn number 97, Lead Kindly Light. After the song, we'll hear a tribute from Everett Anderson, who's a member of our ward, and Jack's nephew. We'll then have a musical selection by, unfortunately, the Jared Northrop family has some illness and all here, but Beth is here to play for us. After her number, we'll have some remarks from Jack's son, and then I'll come up with some remarks.
Think I've got this figured out. If I don't look at anybody, I'm gonna get through this. But if I look at any of you and you're looking back at me, all bets are off. First of all, Weathersfield, Jack was a Ford. My mother was a Ford, my grandfather was a Ford, they don't do column. Judy, I just have to share a few thoughts, a few memories of Jack. And so I got to thinking about some of the things that I could share with you. And I asked my sisters, and one thing that stood out to all of us was how good he was to my mother. Sorry, so he always treated my mother like she was a queen. And it was very impressive to us. He had a lot of love for her and for his family. Growing up 2 blocks away from where Jack was kind of growing up, only 9 years old at that, he loomed large in my life. He was maybe my first real hero other than my own dad. And one of the memories that one of my sisters shared with me was he used to babysit once in a while. And we would go over there, and one of the things that really stood out to us was that's where we learned to love the song Sounds of Silence. And he was even nice enough that he would let me put on his Beatle boots. I don't know if all of you remember about Beatle boots, maybe some of you do, but they were one of his pride and joys. And he always wore them with white Adler socks. They couldn't be any other brand, they had the Adler. And he would let me put them on sometimes. But I was the nephew that when he got the new ball glove, I got his old one. I think it was old enough, it only had 3 fingers. When he got a new bike, I got his old 3-speed. And these things were, to me, treasures. Because it was Jack, he was my uncle, he was the cool guy. When I was in grade school, I asked him if he'd take me to school. And he's 66 years old. And he said, if you're over here, when it's time, and I've got enough time, I'll take you. And so I would make sure that every day that I was over there in time to ride with him. And I remember one time I was a little late getting over there and that car was gone. And I was devastated. The walk to school meant nothing. But when I rode with him and he'd pull up to the grade school and I'd get out and all the kids are going, oh, they loved that car and so did I. I was pretty cool because I got out of that car with my uncle. And he was kind of the guy that made me like fast cars. And I was talking to one of my friends and he remembered that the car that he was given when he was in 9th grade, that if he rebuilt it, he could have it, was a 51 Ford. And I never had a 51 Ford, but I remember him having a 59 Impala. And those 2 Schwells really stood out to me. And enough that I don't remember getting the 59 Impala because of him, but I remember getting my Chevelle, my first Chevelle because of him. And it was just kind of a, I don't know if it was a milestone that I had reached, because when I was a kid, my childhood hero had a Chevelle, so when I got a Chevelle, that made me cool too, I guess. But I don't have my Chevelle anymore, so I'm not cool anymore. But I remember walking home one time, and I got to Grandma's house, and my buddy and I had been hassling back and forth, and I went in there, and I walked in Grandma's house, and I was a little emotional for whatever reason. But Jack was in there, and he always had this ring that he wore right here on his right hand, and it had a red square stone. And he took that off and he put it on my hand. And Jack had bigger hands than me, especially when I was younger. So it was almost like wearing a bracelet, but he said, if that doesn't come back with a little bit of his blood on it, I'm gonna kick your butt. So it did, because I was more scared of him than I was my buddy. But he was always kind of there. When he and Dad both started building our homes up Smithfield Canyon, we'd go over there and we'd help him, and he'd go over and help us. And one night after I got out of school and Dad got off work, we went up there and we were doing something in his house. I don't remember what it was, and he went out. And pretty quick we hear a bang, and the lights went on. So Dad muttered a little under his breath. He knew how to swear too. And we walked out, and there stood Jack, holding a shotgun, standing next to his buddy that was about this tall. And he looked at us with a funny look on his face, and he said, I was just showing Bruce why his shotgun wouldn't fire. It did. Well, Dad looked at me and he used a couple more of those words and he said, we just will go home. So we did. But there were so many things about Jack, and I don't want to take a long time. I know Jack wouldn't want me to take a long time. He'd say, just get it understand. But he always cared about me. He always, I don't know, it just made me feel like I was something important. And when he would come down later, he'd come down and stay with Mom. After Dad died, he'd stay with Mom. And I used to go down every Saturday morning and have breakfast with my mother. So when they came down, I got that chance to hang around them and do and most of her Lacey and Jesse with them. And we just kind of reminisce and remember old times. And it was just kind of fun to watch him interacting with my mother and treating her like a good shape. I always looked up to him. I mean, obviously, he wasn't perfect, neither any of us, especially not me. But he was good to me. He was always helpful to other people that I grew up. And when he decided he was going to move away and live on the other side of Wyoming or on the south end of Nevada, it was kind of unsettling because all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. But it always made it good to see who he was. My younger sister and her husband were going with some friends, and they were headed out to go on a cruise or something. I don't know, world traveling. But as they were going through Nevada, they got a hold of him and they spent the night there. He just opened his home, welcomed them there. It was the way he was. He had compassion for other people. I just think that it was good that we were family members. We were part of the same family. And I'm glad that he is no longer in pain and that he's back with family, renewing acquaintances. Probably the first time the entire Ford family has been together since Grandma Ford was born in 1908. Because none of the kids were all there at the same time. So I imagine that the reunion was sweet. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some thoughts and be able to reminisce over those thoughts. And laying awake remembering all those thoughts, and I'm hoping now maybe I can sleep a while. But I appreciate this opportunity. And I just want to thank Jesus.
I know Lacey already, thanked everyone, but I just wanna reiterate how grateful we are for everyone's support in being here and for, the ward, doing what they're doing for us. Really appreciate it. I was born here in Logan and my name is Dustin Ford. When I was blessed as a child here in Smithfield, my mom found out that my name was actually Jack Dustin Ford, not Dustin Jack Ford. That was a surprise that my dad did on his own there. He signed the birth certificate. And so all of his sons are JDF, have the initials JDF. And his sons have kept that going. They're all JDFs as well. I wrote down my remarks because I'm just not good enough to do what the previous speakers have done. So I'm going to read my remarks. Before I start, I want to say something my dad was very clear about. He wanted his funeral to be a place where people laughed. He wanted it to be light. He wanted his kids to do what we normally did, which was occasionally make fun of him a little bit. At least that's what I got. So if you hear a few stories today that make you smile or even laugh, it's not an accident. That's how he wanted it. My dad lived a full life. And if you knew him well, you knew that by the book was more of a suggestion than a rule. As I've been thinking about him this week, I realized I don't remember my dad as just one version of a man. I remember him in stages. He was different things to me at different times. So instead of trying to sum him up all at once, I would want to share memories of my dad through my eyes as I grew up. Because while I was changing, he was always teaching me something, whether he wanted to or not. These memories, by the way, are special to me. Some of them might sound silly or even, I don't know, but they're special to me and they make me smile. They make me happy. My first memory of my dad is from when I was about 2 or 3 years old. We would say the family prayer at night, and when it was my turn, I would always bless the humbugs, which in my mind were the crickets. One night, my dad told me I didn't need to bless the humbugs anymore. So the very next time I prayed, I blessed them anyway, because they needed it. That was a joke. After the prayer, he took me to my room, spanked me, and put me to bed. That's what I'm talking about. That's a good memory. At that age, my dad was authority, rules matter, obedience mattered. And apparently blessing the crickets was crossing the line. Looking back, I also see that he cared about teaching me the words mattered, even when I was little and stubborn. When I was about 4 years old, I would go with my dad and my grandpa for a shop. To keep me busy, they would put me on a huge Caterpillar scraper. drop it into the lowest gear, and let it crawl along as they work. So there I was, 4 years old, slowly making laps around the shop on a piece of equipment that was bigger than life to me. That was my first experience driving. And at that age, my dad was confident. He believed I could handle things that probably scared everyone else. And somehow it worked out. One fun fact about my dad, he was on the Phil Donahue show talking about father's rights. Now, I've never seen the video, but if anyone knows where it is, I'd like to see it. Some of my favorite memories are riding with him in his big truck. Pulling into truck stops at night with all the lights on. Felt like we were kings. I loved the trucker only showers, the trucker only buffet, and being part of something that felt so grown on me. He would let me check the tires with the Billy Club, even though I had no idea what we were listening for. I would check the tires to make sure they were properly inflated. And he'd ask if everything looked good, and I'd say, yeah, it's all good, let's go. Let me turn the lights on at night. I love that. I would fight sleep as long as I could, sitting in the passenger seat on those long trips, my head bobbing. Refused to admit that I was tired because I wanted to do what he was doing. At that age, he was my hero. I didn't just want to be with him, I wanted to be like him. One other truck memory still makes me laugh. We once took a trip to Edmonton, Alberta, and I think he was delivering trees, maybe palm trees, in his reefer trailer to the East Edmonton Mall. As we got close to the border, he had me climb under the sleeper and hide. Now, I don't know if this was a paperwork issue, timing issue, or just my dad deciding that explaining things to the Border Patrol sounded like a lot more work than it was worth. But for a few minutes, my dad was basically the long haul truck driver acting as a coyote. There I was, smuggled cargo, tucked under the bunk. Looking back, maybe that wasn't the most conventional parenting choice. But at the time, I didn't feel scared, I felt trusted. I felt like his partners in crime. And that's how my dad always made me feel in that truck, like I belonged to it. Okay, when I was about 14, my dad took me to work with him, I believe it was near Fish Lake. So these are all memories that I haven't verified all the locations, but I think it was Fish Lake. And he was working on a crusher at the time. And during the day, he'd give me the keys to the truck. And I'd go fishing. I found just under the lake, where the water comes out into the river. There's a lot of trout there. I don't think you're supposed to fish there, but I caught quite a few fish. One Friday, I came back to pick him up. It was time to go back to Cache Valley, and the guys had stopped early and drinking a little bit. And so my dad said, well, you better drive. Now I was 14. I said, okay, I've had a lot of time on the wheel. After about 45 minutes on the road, he fell asleep. And I drove all the way to Salt Lake before he woke up. that moment stayed with me. He made me feel capable, trusted, like I could do hard things no matter how old I was. And it worked out. Like I said, these memories make me smile, and that's why I'm sharing them with you. They make me happy. When I was 19, I went on a mission. I went to the MTC, and there was a hepatitis outbreak. Every missionary had to get a gallon dog shot. So we lined up hundreds of missionaries and went into these little stalls to get our shot. When it was my turn, I walked in, dropped my pants, and the nurse turned around and said, "Elder, why don't you pull your pants up? The shot's just at the top of the hip." Okay, sorry. So somewhere in the middle of all that, my dad found out that I had gotten gamma globulin shot. And he called the MTC president. And he made his feelings very clear about how he felt about vaccines. So the president called me in the next day to his office, not because I was in trouble, but because my dad wanted to make sure someone was watching out for me, even when I was an adult. After my mission, I worked with him in Bryce Canyon. He'd pick me up on Mondays. I was staying in Lewiston at my grandma King's on the weekends. He'd pick me up at 2 in the morning, and we'd work all week, and then come home on Friday nights. I learned about stone masonry, concrete setup and finishing, insulation, shovel digging technology, and tractor work. I was lucky. My brother Josh came down one summer, and we had a running joke whenever there was something hard to do, like digging. My dad would say, "Well, I got to go check on that plumber." And then we'd see him drive off in his little white Nissan. And now that I'm in my 50s, I find myself going to check on the plumber occasionally. So I don't blame him for that. But those months mattered more than I knew at the time. The last time that I saw my dad really active was at my daughter Sophie's wedding at our home in California. And I know the trip wasn't easy for him. I'm grateful that we made it. And it felt like one more way that he chose to show up. My dad wasn't perfect. He didn't always do things by the book. And I wish we'd had more time together. I wish some parts of life had looked different. But I will take everything that I got. He was my dad, and I know he did the best that he could with the life he was given. He wasn't always there to teach me with words or advice, but he taught me how to be resilient, how to step up when it mattered, and how to keep going when things weren't ideal. I know that he loved me. I know that he loved his family, all his kids, all his extended family. And we love him as well.
I'd like to thank all those who made this service possible today. I would like to remember the Smithfield 17 Board Relief Society, who's prepared a meal to be enjoyed after the graveside service. We hope we'll take advantage of that to embarrass Jack as much as we like. I have nothing but respect for a man or a woman who learns a skill, turns it into a trade, and uses that trade to support and bless the life of his family. I have nothing but respect for a man who treats his mom like a queen, a man who works hard to instill in his children the values that he holds dear. I did not know Jack personally, but I've enjoyed getting to know him through the memories of those who did. Thank you. We're still feels Jack helping it from the other side, and I hope you all do too. I believe we have help available to us from the other side. I don't know how it works. I have faith in it. And I know there's one person especially who loves each of us more than anyone else. He loves me, he loves Jack, and he loves each of you. He's our Savior, Jesus Christ. And he will judge us in that infinite love. And I agree with that. Jack was one of the good guys. And I believe he will be welcomed by his family on the other side. I know funerals are not always happy occasions, but they are a great chance to enjoy a family reunion. And as you enjoy your family reunion today, remember that he is enjoying his as well. And I bear testimony of that in the name of Jesus Christ. We'll close this service by singing hymn number 152. 152 again, following which Sister Shelby Park, my granddaughter, will offer the benediction. And then after the benediction, the pallbearers may gather at the foyer out here, and those who are headed to the cemetery will follow the procession.
Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to gather here as a family today and friends to celebrate the life of Grandpa Jack. We are grateful for all the memories that were shared today to remind us of the love that he gave each and every one of us. We ask that you grant comfort to those who are feeling grief and sorrow and feel his love that he's left for each of us. Help us to move on past this and find in our hearts to come together as family and to cherish the moments that we did have together. We love you, Grandpa, and we miss you until we meet again. We say these things in Jesus Christ, amen.
Happens to our lives.